The Galactic Academy's entrance examination chamber hummed with anticipation as candidates from 17 different species gathered for the legendary tactical assessment. Lisa Chen stood among them, her human frame dwarfed by the towering Crithians and the crystalline Zelnori. Beside her, Jackson Miller adjusted his neural interface band, though neither of them would need it for what came next. The lead instructor, a four-armed Vexisthor named Qualsec, materialized at the center of the testing arena. His species had administered this examination for 3,000 years, refining it into what they considered the ultimate measure of strategic thinking. Candidates, Qualsec's voice reverberated through translation matrices. You will face the Omega scenario. Before we begin the simulation, I will explain the... A sharp chime interrupted him. Every holographic display in the chamber focused on Station 47. Lisa's station. Impossible, whispered Qualsec's assistant, a floating bioluminescent entity. The scenario hasn't even loaded yet. But Lisa's display showed otherwise. Where other candidates stared at blank screens awaiting instructions, hers displayed a complete solution matrix, color-coded and annotated. The simulation's victory condition had been achieved before the parameters were even announced. Qualsec's facial plates shifted the Vex-Thor equivalent of a frown. He glided toward Lisa's station, his forearms folding in a gesture that transcended species. Skepticism. Candidate Chen, he said slowly. You cannot possibly have solved the Omega scenario. The encryption on the scenario files is military grade. Even accessing them without authorization should have triggered Omega Cs. I didn't access anything, Lisa interrupted, her voice calm but carrying across the silent chamber. I solved it based on the testing environment itself. Jackson suppressed a smile. He'd seen Lisa do this before, back at the Terran Preparatory Institute. While other students memorized protocols, Lisa saw patterns in the absence of information. Qualsec's translator crackled with what might have been indignation. Explain. Now. Rang. Lisa gestured at the chamber around them. The room's configuration told me everything. You positioned the observation nodes in a three-dimensional matrix that suggests the scenario involves spatial warfare. The temperature has been dropped by exactly 2.3 degrees Celsius, which means you're simulating the thermal signature of a debris field. The magnetic field fluctuations in the northwest quadrant indicate the presence of simulated stellar activity. She pulled up a wireframe schematic on her display. You've run this exact test configuration 73 times in the past 4 cycles. I accessed the public maintenance logs, perfectly legal, and cross-referenced the environmental adjustments. Each configuration correlates with a specific scenario type. That still doesn't explain the Omega scenario, Lisa continued, her fingers dancing across her console. It's the only test you run that requires full environmental manipulation, maximum computational resources, and involves all 17 species-specific challenge parameters simultaneously. The scenario must accommodate everything from methane breathers to silicate consciousness. That narrows the possibilities dramatically. A Crithian candidate, twice Lisa's height with exoskeleton gleaming, leaned forward. But knowing the type of scenario doesn't give you the solution. Lisa's smile was patient, almost apologetic. No, but human pattern recognition does. Your species, all of you, think in terms of optimization and elegance. You create scenarios with clean solution paths because your cognitive architectures favor efficiency. She shrugged. We overthink everything. We see 17 different ways a plan could go wrong before we see the one way it could go right. Jackson finally spoke up, his voice carrying the easy confidence of someone who'd watched Lisa work miracles before. The instructors always say humans overthink. They mean it as a criticism. But what they don't understand is that overthinking is just thinking about thinking. It's metacognition. We don't just solve problems, we solve the frameworks that create problems. Qualsec accessed Lisa's solution matrix, his optical sensors widening. This strategy, it's inefficient. It uses 40% more resources than the optimal path. It uses 40% more resources than your optimal path, Lisa corrected. But it accounts for the 3 variables your optimal path assumes away. The solar flare probability you rounded down to 0? It's actually 0.03%. And in a 3-hour engagement window, that's enough to matter. The debris field density you averaged? It has a bimodal distribution that creates navigation choke points your smooth solution misses. She pulled up comparative simulations. Your elegant solution works in 97% of runs. Mine works in 100%, because I assumed everything that could go wrong would go wrong. The chamber erupted in whispers. Candidates from species known for their analytical prowess stared at their blank screens. Then, at Lisa's completed solution, a Zelnori crystalline entity chimed musically. But how did you calculate 17 species-specific parameters without knowing which species would face which challenge? I didn't calculate them individually, Lisa said. I created a solution space that works regardless of parameter variation. It's less efficient, but it's universally robust. Humans learned a long time ago that the most elegant solution isn't always the most survivable one. Qualsek's arms unfolded slowly. For a long moment, he simply observed the human female who had dissected 3 millennia of testing methodology in the time it took him to materialize in the chamber. Your species truly does overthink, he said finally. His facial plates shifted again, this time in what might have been respect. You see threats in shadows, contingencies in certainties, and chaos in order. Yes, Lisa agreed simply. And yet, Qualsek continued, gesturing at her solution matrix, this chaos-born strategy outperforms our order-born optimization. Jackson stood, placing a hand on Lisa's shoulder. That's what humans do. Instructor. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us with predators, diseases, climate shifts, and our own tribal conflicts. We learned to overthink because underthinking meant extinction. We became paranoid, anxious, and perpetually convinced that something was about to go wrong. He looked around at the assembled candidates. And we brought that beautiful, terrible paranoia to the stars. Lisa saved her solution and uploaded it to the examination network. The scenario hasn't even loaded for the other candidates yet. Should I wait? Or, Qualsek's translator emitted what might have been a laugh. Load the scenario. Let us see if reality matches your overthought predictions. The Omega scenario materialized across every display. A collective gasp rippled through the chamber as candidates saw the complexity. A multi-front engagement in contested space with dynamic variables and species-specific challenges layered into a scenario that would have taken most candidates 6 hours to navigate. Lisa's solution matrix aligned with the scenario like a key into a lock. Every contingency she'd predicted appeared. Every variable she'd accounted for manifested. The solar flare she'd calculated at 0.03% probability occurred at the 2-hour mark. Exactly as her model suggested. The simulation resolved in 8 minutes. Victory. Complete. Qualsek's 4 arms spread wide in the Vex Thor gesture of acknowledgement. Candidate Chen, you have achieved what no candidate in 3,000 years has accomplished. You solved the unsolvable by refusing to accept our definition of solvable. Lisa smiled, but her eyes were already scanning the chamber's configuration again, no doubt cataloging details for the next impossible challenge. Humans overthink, she said quietly. That's what makes us dangerous. That's what makes us survivors. Jackson nodded. That's what makes us human,